Hello and welcome to GuyLogic. My name is Temko and this is Rogue Wizards, a roguelite slash rogue-like game about you being a bandit slash wizard and exploring dungeons and killing enemies and getting cool loot to explore more dungeons to kill more enemies. And if this sounds to be something right up your alley, then stick on ahead. But first, we're going to go ahead and look into the options menu and talk a little bit about PC performance and all the stuff like that. If we head into settings, you'll see controls that are fully rebindable, which is always a good thing. You'll be playing the game 99% with your mouse, so having these extra controls is not really necessary, but they're a nice addition and useful to have. Never anything wrong with having rebindable keys. Other than that, if we head into settings again, we go to video options, and video options have a nice long list of resolutions, as well as full screen on or off, which is really everything the game has regarding video settings. And on audio, you have sound effects and music, which is also the end of any options and settings you have available. The game further has the option to turn on tutorial tips, but that is really it. Now, the game is a isometric, pretty stylized title in terms of its aesthetics, so not having lots of graphical options is not that bad. But not having any form of options, including up to shadows and things like that, which should always be available at the very least in 99% of titles, is not that great. Also, the game doesn't run that great. It does hold 60 FPS, but there are some frame drops here and there, especially in larger dungeons or when it has to load in a bunch of enemies. I'm not sure where that comes from, but it is kind of distracting and annoying in a title that for no reason at all should ever have frame dips. And which really brings us to the end of the options menu. There isn't really a lot more to add. The options menu is bare bones at the very best. There is no dialogue in the game, so the audio menu is decent, but the video menu is woefully poor, missing many features, including the ability to have full screen windowed, or something I like to talk on, things like colorblind mode and stuff like that. But that is a bit of a pipe dream, as the game doesn't even have any options such as anti-aliasing or shadows available at all. So again, a bit of a shame on that regard. The game doesn't look bad at all, but not having the ability to customize the game to your preferences on a PC title is a downside for sure. Now, as I said, the game is mostly controlled by mouse, so let's go ahead and dive into this little game of mine and talk a little bit about what it is all about. Now, Rogue Wizard says it is a rogue-like. And before we head to gameplay proper, I want to show you this little town of yours where you can customize, buy stuff, and look at various things. The first gripe I have the game, pets. You have the ability to get pets. I have a little snow crab here, and I can take him with me to the next dungeon I take, and after which he will need to rest, which is fine and dandy. The problem is he rests in real time, and these rest times can go up to several hours, which means that if I need this little snow crab today to do a dungeon, it could be literally that he needs up to the next day physically to be able to play again. I'm not sure what this kind of mobile gameplay crap this is, but I'm not okay with it at all. Also, the game never really explains to you how you get more pets, because I've been trying to get any more and they're just not available. Maybe I just haven't progressed far enough into the game, but frankly, I have no desire to do so. Because that brings me to my second point. The AI is piss poor, and the gameplay dungeon crawling is grindy and repetitive, which is really annoying. And I'll go into a dungeon in a second, but before that, I want to show something that is pretty decent about this game, which is the inventory and gear system. As you can see, I have a bunch of gear here. Some of these gears have slots, some of them do not, and you can equip gear pretty reasonably, and you can then level up gear. Again, the gear doesn't actually need you to do anything to level it up. Simply wearing it will level it up and make it quite a bit more powerful than anything surrounding it, meaning that if you have a little piece of gear you've had for a very long time, it's probably better than anything you loot up to several levels later, which is a bit weird. It's really cool that the items gear up and they gain stats for it. As you can see, my Divine ++ Neophytes Hunters Tunicus Bashing is rank 11 out of 12, and I'm almost there to the last rank. And every rank is gained defense. It has given me the ability to gain more XP when I'm damaged, which is really useful if you want a power level, and the grind in this game is pretty horrendous, so you'll probably want some extra XP here and there. Gives me a bunch of extra health and gives me some ranks in things like helmets and staffs. Pretty great. But it doesn't require any intervention from my end to do anything with this, so that really boils down to just wearing it and dying over and over again until it levels up and then using it, which is really weird because there's no need for you to do anything. Talking about dying and doing things again, for a roguelite or roguelike, this game has a very big aversion to death. I don't mean you don't die. You do die, but there's no penalty whatsoever. You don't lose any of your gold, you don't lose any of your gear, you don't even lose any of your experience. You just reset the dungeon and you go at it again. In fact, this is a requirement because the game is so damn grindy. Because you have to do the same dungeon repeatedly over and over and over again just to get experience, just to level up, just so you can fight the boss, just so you can complete that dungeon to do the same thing over and over again in the next dungeon. That is really, really bad. The game does have a magic system and a spell tree. Each level you get a couple of spell points and you can spend them on upgrading these spells. The spells are capped based on your level, so it's not like you can just go with Fireball and just level up the fire tree all the way. You do need to branch out into 2 or 3 different trees, which is a really strange thing again because there's no reason for it. Why can't I just get Ignite? It's not like it's extremely powerful in any way, shape, or form until I level it up repeatedly, so it's just a pointless, grindy mechanic yet again, and that is a damn shame. So, having spoken about all of that, let's go ahead and dive into the gameplay proper and talk a little bit more about what annoys me further, because aesthetically the game is great, but there are some serious gameplay issues in regards to both crafting, in regards to leveling up, and in regards to gear. So let's go ahead and dive into some gameplay and look into getting this Rift of Ice, which I've done about 7 times now, yet again. So when you load into a dungeon, you're presented with this little grid on the floor. In the top right, there's a mini-map. In the top center, your XP and health bars are available, and you have some options menu in your bottom right and bottom left. The base goal of the game is to run around in the dungeon, tile by tile, kill these enemies, using a variety of weapons and magic spells, and each dungeon you get a sidekick for the duration of that dungeon, which then translates, up to now at least, into a sidekick in town, which unlocks a certain thing like the blacksmith or the safe or another aspect of a tower. Each dungeon also has access to 1 merchant, which you can go back to and sell stuff you've looted in case your inventory is full. Or if you desire to do so, you can buy some more potions or magical equipment from them. But frankly, you don't really need any of that magical equipment or potions or anything of them. Chances are they don't have any weapons that are better than your current weapons, and even if they do, they're probably too expensive to buy unless you've been hoarding gold for quite a while. Potions too are limited to a maximum of 5 in your inventory, which, while I understand from a gameplay balance perspective, is still really, really strange because it doesn't serve any purpose except to artificially force you to re-grind a certain dungeon time and time again, because the difficulty curve is so low that even being several levels below mobs, you can still kill them in 1 or 2 blows, and that is kinda strange. Now, it's not that you can kill them in 1 or 2 blows that bothers me here, is that the AI is stupid as shit and doesn't do anything well. The mobs don't really think ahead, they don't really plan ahead, they don't work together with each other in their pack. The few mobs that have mechanics that they cast on other AI do so at random seemingly, with no regards to positioning or attack patterns or even health of different various NPCs. They will indiscriminately attack whoever's closest, not even paying attention to an enemy that might be further away but more damaged, or an enemy that might be doing something else that's doing more damage. There is no depth to the AI outside of just attacking whoever's in front and then dying in a repeated attempt to kill you. The second issue I have with this combat system, especially in regards to enemy AI, is that the AI, without regard for anything, will cast the same spell or do the same ability time and time again, even when that proves to be ineffective. I have an ability that grants me a magical shield, which deflects physical damage, and the AI keeps on smashing and attacking and going in on me even though I have that physical shield, instead of casting the magical spell which breaks that shield, and they have that spell because they've been casting it time and time again when I don't have that shield up. It's a really baffling and strange, and for no particular reason in there outside of just bad game development, and that is a damn shame. Now granted, the various abilities and mechanics of the mobs are pretty cool, and the variety of mobs is also pretty well implemented. I've never had the idea that I was getting samey or stale in a specific mob type outside of obviously within a specific dungeon. There's quite a bit of variety and quite a bit of range in terms of enemies available, but it is of vital importance that the AI actually does something competent and not just be cannon fodder for you and your even more dumb sidekick to do stuff in. And this also translates into bosses and other game mechanics because there is no depth to them. As I said earlier, the leveling up mechanic of your gear is non-existent from an active participant part. You just randomly get upgrades. And really the same goes for the enemies and the bosses. Eventually, you'll have grinded enough of the dungeon to kill him in one shot, and then you can go progress. I've been doing this dungeon at least 7 or 8 runs now, not because it is a particularly hard dungeon, but because the mobs will do spells which you have no counter to, and then just kill you eventually. Or if they don't do it, the boss being several levels above you will do enough damage to one-shot or two-shot you. And that is not fun gameplay, because all you end up doing is rerunning the same dungeon, grinding experience just so you can eventually go in and kill things because you're now strong enough. There is no actual curve, and the challenge here isn't from difficulty or roguelike randomness, which both would have been fine. The difficulty here is simply from the fact that everything is grindy and high level when it is first forced upon you. The first dungeon boss is level 4, you meet him when you're level 1. The second dungeon boss is level 7, you meet him when you're level 3. Because that's when you probably kill the first boss. And there's no way you can kill him at that point. You need several levels of upgrades, several levels of items, and several random drops and random drop chances to get anywhere. Now granted, in a roguelike, random drops are an important part to it. The randomized nature makes a hell of a lot of fun, and it introduces a lot of the coolest moments in the game. You got a magical sword that improves your run, or you had bad luck and never got anything useful and died 2 steps in. The situation here though is because you die without any consequence whatsoever, you just go straight back in until you get all those divine and holy and unnaturally legendary items, even if they're rare, because there's no particular reason for you to need to be careful. Death holds no penalty, death does not reset anything, and that again is a damn shame. So from a roguelike perspective, it doesn't really do anything roguish. From a dungeon crawling perspective, well, you're repeating the same dungeon, so technically you're crawling through it time and time again. And from a gameplay mechanical standpoint, the game is basically bland in its design and turn-based system. Because one thing I haven't spoken about yet is how the combat interaction works. Every action you do takes a turn, whether or not that is moving a tile, whether or not that is drinking a potion, whether or not that is casting a spell or switching equipment. So if you switch from your sword to your bow to your fireball and then drink a potion, that is 4 turns gone. If you take 1 step forward and the enemy takes 1 step backward, that is 1 turn gone. And there are situations, especially, and you can see them in the video, is where enemies put down ice that slides you away, and all you have left is either waiting until the enemies come to you, and if you slide off screen they never will, or going back on the ice to just get hit with the same spell again to slide off again until random RNG chance puts you in the same spot as the enemy so you can finally hit them once so they're dead. Just isn't enjoyable gameplay. It slows down the game for no particular reason, it introduces mundane complexity for no particular reason, and it doesn't introduce anything new or exciting to the game outside of repeating move forward, wait, and then dying. The same thing can be said for most of the bosses. While they do change the abilities of the bosses quite a bit in terms of what they do, and there is some variety in which boss you'll be facing depending on how things fold out, the bosses are all basically the same. They have 1 or 2 sets of abilities, they will summon 1 or 2 sets of adds every so many turns, and you're gonna have to kill them in the meantime. They'll repeat the same attacks every couple of turns, and there's no variance of any form or regard. They'll also not, again, do anything illogical. Bosses will walk away from you just to then teleport away yet again. Bosses will run away from you after being hit in melee, getting hit in fireballs in the head, and then move forward back to you without doing anything in particular except moving away, just to smack you in the face again in melee instead of just staying in melee and killing you in a few turns. That simply reeks of bad AI, and it's the underlying problem for most of this game's interaction and combat. A good aesthetic it has, but the gameplay does not back it up in any way, shape, or form. And while I applaud the cool itemization and the interesting take on magic, the game is simply boring and bland in terms of both the depths and complexity of its AI, the depths and complexity of its combat system, and calling itself a roguelike or roguelite is a stretch to the extreme when the only rogue-ish element you have is the fact that you have a dungeon that's procedurally generated. And frankly, I'm kinda tired of procedural generation as well, even though they've done a pretty decent job of it here. The last note I want to make is regarding gear and gear drops. Now the gear drops and gear progression is pretty decent, but because of the randomized chance of dropping stuff coupled with death holding no penalty, there's really no particular reason why you would need to hold on to a certain gear set. You also have plenty of inventory space, plenty of bag space, and you don't really have to make any choices in regard to what equipment you use. I wield a sword, a spear, a staff, and a bow equally well depending on the rank of the actual weapon. Rogue Wizards tries to be a cool 2D isometric roguelike. What they've really accomplished is being a bland, tile-based mobile title with real-time waiting on your pets and shitty AI, and that's a shame. I personally could not find much enjoyment in the title, but your mileage may vary, obviously. If you are interested in checking it out, you can check it out on Steam. It comes out on September the 27th for the grand total of $15 or your regional equivalent. So thank you for watching. If you liked this video, press the like button below. If you didn't like this video, there's a dislike button for exactly that purpose, and leave a comment. Tell us what we can do better. Tell us what we did great. We want to hear back from all of you. And if you want to see more content like this on the channel, just press that subscribe button down below and we will deliver. So until then, I wish you a good day, and until next time, right here on GuyLogic.